Hey everybody, here with I was with Marc Sophoulis, but I think there might have been a little issue. So let me. Oh, here we go. Hey, you got stage fright, mate, eh?
Wow, I don't know what happened
Just kidding.
there.
No worries, no worries. Well, we are here with my buddy Marc, who's been on the summit, I think, since its inception in 2017, which is crazy to think about now. But it's really a pleasure to have you on, Marc. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, and I do apologize. I did say earlier my voice is a bit croaky today, but yeah, hopefully everyone gets something from the presentation, even though I'm a bit croaky. So let's see how we go.
Oh, no worries. Just gives you that extra character, you know. It's but I like it. But Marc is the founder of the Tennis Menu, which you all should definitely check out. There's a link below this video if you're watching via the Summit website. So just click that button actually, and you can check it out. And then Marc, are you still also the head coach at MITS right now as well?
Yeah, still admits, yeah, head coach there in Melbourne, and we've just opened up in Bali as well. So we've got Bali and
Wow.
Singapore, but I'm running the Melbourne side of things, which is cool.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Marc. And today we're here to talk strategy and how to, really think on the court and be very tactical and hopefully outsmart your opponents. So I'm really excited to have you on because you've really had great success with our audience in talking about this area. So yeah, feel free to go for it, and we can share your
Yeah,
slides and whatnot. Yeah, whenever you.
absolutely. I'll share the slides now for you guys. So hopefully, hopefully we have no technical issues this time. But,
No worries.
we'll see
No
how we
worries.
go. We all good with seeing that so far?
Oh yeah, beautiful. There we go.
All right. So I did this presentation actually a few months ago. I was in Japan, and they'd asked me to come across, and I did a tour of Japan of 7 cities in 10 days and presenting a lot around the strategy of the game and how our thinking affects our actions. And I'm going to go through a little bit of that today. It's a bit of a condensed version of what I presented over there, which was a 7-hour presentation. And we'll condense this into about a 30-minute presentation, and we'll take some questions at the end. So if anyone has any questions, obviously flick them through to Merban as we're going along, but we'll obviously have a chat at the end and go through any questions we do have. So what we're looking at is how our thinking affects what we do on court, and making the right decisions to be able to reduce the amount of errors we make, increasing the chance of us winning matches. So the question I have, and Merban, I'm going to ask this to you because obviously I don't have our audience on speaker, but what are the odds of winning a tennis match if you went out and played a tennis match?
What are the odds of winning a tennis match? 50-50.
Fantastic. Great job. I'm glad
Yes.
I've got a smart guy on the other line, which is
Yeah.
cool. And then I'll ask you the same question, but what's the odds of you beating Novak Djokovic if you walked out in the court today?
99.9% he wins. Injury for the 0.1.
Okay, so most people would say the same thing. But what I believe is that our perception is our beliefs. Now, no matter who you play and no matter who the opponent is, whether you think they're better or you think they're not, it's actually a 50-50 contest. It's a 1v1 battle. It's a 50-50 contest. And I think a lot of the time as players, we put ourselves into positions where we think that the opponent is better or we think the opponent is worse. And we start to go into a mindset of, I should win or I should lose this match before the match even starts. And our perception will drive our actions. So what I want people to understand is we have to start removing the expectation of what the outcome may be before we even start a match. So if I think about a match, there's 3 scenarios. There's a win-win scenario, there's a win-lose scenario, and there's a lose-lose scenario. Now, the win-win scenario is when I'm playing someone who's well above me, e.g. Novak Djokovic, as we mentioned before. And in that scenario, generally, we play our best tennis. We go out there, we swing freely. We don't care if we win or lose. We know that we're going to get beaten anyway. And we usually play our best tennis because we're free of any expectation. We have a win-lose scenario where the player is on the same level as us. And depending on how the start of the match goes, our mindset will be determined by that starting point of the first few games. And if I start winning, I start to feel like I'm in control. If I start losing, I start to doubt myself. And then there's the third one, which a lot of us put ourselves or get ourselves into, is a lose-lose scenario. Now, lose-lose scenario is playing a player who is well below you, someone you're expected to beat. So if you go out there and you win the match, everyone says to you, yeah, but you're already expected to beat this player because they're lower ranked than you are. And if you lose the match, everyone says, well, how did you lose to that player? Now, the mind is a really interesting tool that we have, and one that can either help us or hurt us. And if we start to expect too much in our mindset, we start to play to the expectation instead of the action that we need to produce. So to win a match, we have to win the war in our mind before we win the war on the court. And it's a critical quote for me because it's a battle of ourselves more importantly than a battle against our opponent. Because every single thought that we have on a tennis court creates an action. If I say to myself, oh, my serve is not good, or I'm struggling on serve, the action will produce that. Our brain is a strong tool that actually determines whether we can or can't do something. And one of the quotes that I've always gone by is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. Now, the brain tells us what we can and can't do. So the important part about anything that we do in tennis is the ability to control our brain and control our thoughts, help to control our actions. I presented this in Japan because I felt like it was a really important element to go down the path of. But we have two parts of our brain. We have the subconscious and we have the conscious part of the brain. 95% of our thoughts on a court come from our subconscious part of our brain. And our subconscious part of our brain is the back of the brain, which is our past part of the brain. So all our past experiences, all our past thoughts, all the things that we've gone through in our life are in our past, in our subconscious brain. The 5% is our conscious brain. Now, if our conscious brain is caught up in, I can't serve, I'm struggling to play, I can't hit a forehand, our conscious brain can't actually take in what is happening on the court at that time because we are thinking so negatively about what's going on.
Oh, hey guys. I think Mark had some tech issues right now, but if you have any questions, just let me know. I will, yeah, Rockchild. In the meantime, I will regale you with a story about a match that I had in college where I played one of my friends in the freshman year of college, and I was winning 6-2, 5-1, and my mentality at that point was, I can't wait to win my very first college match. And then, yeah, of course, I ended up losing. And afterwards, I talked with my coach, and he mentioned, hey, you've got to focus on the process, not the results. And so, I mean, I think that's one big lesson I learned in terms of mentality. Another one I mentioned earlier today about how it's really important to have your mindset in place. Actually, you know what? This wasn't a live stream, but this was a stream with or a recording with Gavin McMillan, who you'll see in tomorrow's sessions. And what he mentioned was that it's a combination of the trusting your training. So all the hours that you put in before playing a match, that's going to give you confidence and also results as well. But I think it's just something that these 2 points you can keep in mind, because it's very important. The mental game is very highly overrated. Also, what I talked to give you another preview about Gavin's session is I told him about how, I'd been having trouble with my technique, and it actually was linked to my mentality, because I have been taking these serve lessons with a coach around here named Hyon. And my second serve, I would think, before, that I didn't want to miss it, and so I would just try to get it in, and that resulted in, technical changes that are very different from, a normal serve motion, like a natural fluid motion. And what Hyon told me was, you need to go for your second serve. Don't change the swing, because if you do, then it's going to be even worse, because then you're going to be very tentative, and then you're oftentimes going to miss your serve in the net. So that's even worse. So it's better to just go for it, which will cause you to have the proper technique, and get you, a lot of spin and power production. Let's see here. Rockchild, yeah, that's true. Brian, how do you turn your negative mindset around in the middle of a set or point? Sometimes I don't realize how negative I'm being until the end of a point, or while we're switching sides of the court. Well, Brian, that reminds me of our earlier session with Gigi Fernandez, because what she said is that, earlier in her career, she would be very disappointed, when she missed her shots, and she would think of the past, past misses. But her mindset, which she challenged everyone to do, I don't know, I think you were there, Brian, was to think about only the next point, because if you're thinking about what happened in the past, or you're thinking about the result, which is the future, then you're not focused on the present. And this also applies to all parts of life. Like if you're sitting in your house, and you're with your kid, your family, but then you're thinking about the future or the past, that is not going to be conducive to focusing. Let me email Mark and just see what's up. Hey, Mark, um, try joining the same link again. Let's see what to talk about. Well, I would love if you could give me some questions, because this is going to be a presentation with Mark, but I don't want to leave you all here, and hopefully he'll come back soon. But I will give you some of my most powerful tips while I'm waiting for Mark that have helped me. So, okay, one thing that I've been working on recently is, again, my serve. And my coach found that I was actually stepping too far around. So instead of stepping to the inside of my front foot, I was actually stepping a bit to the side. And what that causes or inhibits is the rotation. If you think about like your feet, if one is here, you can't really rotate the body so well as if they're more parallel, or slightly the back foot is inside. So by changing that small detail, that allowed me to really load very well on my serve, and that caused me is really helping my swing speed. So I realize I'm giving you some technical questions or tips. I'm just kind of all over the place waiting for Mark. So let me give you some singles. Okay, we'll go with single strategy tips. I like to keep my singles game very simple. So when I did play a lot of singles, and I had a lot of success, especially in the juniors, what I would do is very simple: cross courts until you get a short ball. So like a short ball near the service line, then I'd go down the line and attack, go to the net, and that was it. And my game was based upon simplicity and using my speed. So that's another thing, is to like figure out what your strengths are. Are your strengths your forehand? Are your strengths your consistency? Is your strength your speed? And then you try to use that. Try to get your opponent to play into your hands, and get yourself hitting as many forehands as possible. Whether that's you know working the back, hitting to cross court forehand, so that they're most of their shots are going to your forehand. Or if you know you're engaged in a backhand rally, maybe you slice or chip to the down the line, very safe one, and then reestablish the cross court with them. Hopefully they'll hit a cross court. So it's all about really thinking and figuring out what to do there. um let's see, Rockchild, is it possible to get so used to losing matches that you can't figure out how to win? It is. It's a really a mental struggle. tennis can be sometimes. You lose some close matches, or you get beat pretty bad, and then it's kind of like a spiral downward. But I think what the focus should be on overall is for you to be try to improve, try to improve your game. Maybe you're playing really tough players, and like it's just really hard to win, right? So I mean, you can do a few things. You can enter tournaments that maybe where the level is a little bit lower, and to get your confidence back. You can go on the practice court and use these match losses as fuel. I know that, when, like, for example, I think this was actually pivotal. So I played a doubles match, a 9-0 match, with my 4-0 partner. We played against 2-4-5. No, was it? Yeah, against a 4-5. No, I apologize. Against a 5-0 and a 4-0. And that match, I really felt like we should have won based on the opponents. No disrespect, I'm not naming names right now, but we lost that match. And I was actually pretty relaxed. I said, you know what? This is a sign that I really need to get some private lessons and train and really try to maximize my potential, because right now it's not happening, and I clearly need to fix. I think I got broken too many times for my liking. And so that caused me, out of a negative to create a positive. And then I got coaching, and now my serve has improved, and I feel like I'm playing, better than I have in a long time. So I think like the mentality of trying to constantly improve, not worry about the results so much, is going to help you really, mentally to just persevere. And then it's funny, like a lot of things in life, when you're not focusing so much on the results, all of a sudden the results come. I remember in 2020 when I was doing my summit. I had done it since 2017, and I wasn't even thinking about the results, and all of a sudden, just boom, my viewership, or I guess people who joined, went from like 5,000 the previous year in 2019 to like 12,000. So it was pretty incredible. But it's kind of the same with tennis, in effect. If you just focus on improving yourself every single time you're out there on the court, I'm not saying that you'll always, every time you'll play better and better, because that's impossible. But if you focus on improvements, if you focus on, what do I do, what I need to do, what I need to practice to give me the largest return on investment, that is going to eventually give you great returns. And it's not going to happen right away. It's just like that graphic of, you see two people like digging for diamonds, and then one person turns around and you see there's like a millimeter left of like dirt to mine before they get to the diamonds. So you keep that in mind, for sure. Some other strategy tips, a lot of these I learned from Mark. One is to really pay attention to the grips of your opponent. So, for example, if you're playing a player with, a extreme Western forehand grip, or whatever, forehand or backhand, I think it would be a great idea for you to hit a lot of low balls, some low slices, because that's a very difficult ball for people with extreme grips to hit. By contrast, if I've played some great players. I can think of a 5-0 female player who's really good, and I don't know if she wants to be named, but my strategy with her is to hit very heavy spin high, out of her strike zone. That's the thing. It really, in essence, it comes down to getting the ball out of the opponent's strike zone. And to do that, you can employ like non-standard tennis. I would say you can think of it as the sabotage tactic. So I highly encourage you to watch Jorge Capestani's session, which I think came out, was it Tuesday? Let me check. Let me check the session schedule. But I think, let's see. Yeah, Tuesday. So it's still available for you all in the free ticket until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. But that one was all about employing, slices, drop shots, and like you don't have to raise your level of play. Like all you have to do is really use strategies that will throw off your opponents. So if your opponent gets uncomfortable, then that's going to decrease their level of play, while, you know, having your play at the same level, but you're just employing different tactics. And tactics is everything. Of course, we know that these tennis matches are won just matter a couple points, right? All these USTA league matches going to, third set tiebreakers and whatnot. And I in doubles, I really enjoy, because I'm playing mostly doubles, a tactical aspect of that, and just, thinking like, okay, it's 30 all. I'm at the net. I'm going to call a poach because, the other team is going to be kind of tight and they're going to probably return cross court so I can pick this ball off. So I think, that's one thing that you can employ. What else with singles tactics? I wish I had Mark's slides. I could have gone through them. But one other thing I like to do is to, of course, assess what type of opponent I'm playing. So if I have a player who is really adept at getting the ball back, so like, you can call them pushers or whatnot, I like to hit these short chips and make them come into the net, right? Because these players who are super consistent, they're often least comfortable at net. They love being, at the baseline, several feet behind the baseline usually. So what do? You got to put them in an environment that is uncomfortable for them. So that's the key there. Let me see what's if Mark has replied yet. Let's see. Hey Mark, hope all is well, holding it down until you get back, smiley face. Oh man. Um What else? What else? I'm sorry for this being just like kind of all over the place, because Mark was going to be presenting. Let's see. Let's give you some doubles tactics. So one of my favorite doubles plays is the Aussie formation, because especially on the ad side, if you favor your forehand and you're righty, instead of serving from the ad side where your partner is here and you're here, is this even showing correctly? You can get the forehand, hit your forehand, engage in these forehand rallies, which is your strength. If you're in the Aussie position, Aussie formation, where both players are on the same side, on the ad side, and then the server back here, they shift to the right, which would be you, or your partner if you want it that way. So I really like that formation. Again, I also just like trying to think of like when I can move, when I can apply pressure, um, any sort of movement. Honestly, just introducing movement into doubles is going to really change everything. Like I've noticed this right away, like especially the lower level you go, in playing. Well, I think I played 9-0 a few weeks ago, 40 plus, which some folks don't believe I'm able to play. So, but yeah, I am turning 40 this year. But in that 9-0 league, I remember I told my partner Laura, like, hey, let's do use this formation. And all of a sudden my opponents were just spraying returns out left and right, and it really threw them off, because before that, the male opponent, who was actually, I think they were both 4-5, but he was just cracking returns against my partner Laura's serve, where I really, there was no way I could really poach, because he was just cracking them, like I said. So we did I formation. So then that caused him to think about, where am I going to be? And so he then, sprayed some backhands wide, and just missed, or like I was able to pick off a shot. And we won that match 10-8 in the third set breakers. So every point counts. Let's see, what other strategies do I like. One other strategy in doubles that I like, that maybe some of you are uncomfortable with, is actually if I'm on the deuce side and my opponent is serving down the tee, I like to actually blast my backhand down the line. And that's because, at least, but in the matches that I play, my opponents, as soon as they see their partner serve to the backhand, they love to poach. And so if I blast the ball down the line with my backhand, then that just totally gets them off kilter, and produces errors. Oh, here's Mark. Mark,
I'm back. Where did you lose me?
I don't know. I was just blabbering for like 10 minutes or so. So
Oh, gee.
luckily not everyone didn't leave. So that's good.
It's
Yeah.
apologize if you lost me and where you lost me, but where was I at when you lost
No
me?
worries. You were on the Is this a second or third slide? I think. Oh no, you were asking about like what percentage of losses or points lost, something like that. I'm trying to remember. If you go to the slide, I'll show you.
Okay,
But
so
yeah, yeah, because
all right,
you had
let's
just
have,
asked me like what percentage do I think I have, and I said like 99%. Oh, and then you went into how it's all about the mentality. Um, Here we go.
right.
Thanks everyone for bearing my random strategy advice.
Did you see that side? Have you seen this?
No, I don't think I saw that yet. Actually, yeah, this is where we left off. Yeah, that's about where we left off.
Yeah. Okay.
The 25.
So basically, the biggest part of what I wanted to show today was the fact that um, it's our thinking and our perception that causes us to probably make more errors than not. So it's the thinking behind everything. Now, if we think about the amount of time we are playing on the court, which is 25%, and the amount of time we have thinking time, for us, the biggest thing is that we spend a lot of time in our thoughts. So it's the ability for us to channel our thoughts into the right area to be able to make really good decisions when we are hitting balls. And it's our ability to calm our brain and put it into a conscious part, a present part, to ensure we are making really strong decisions. All right. Did we get anywhere near this?
No, I don't think we did. Do you think it would be we could make it bigger? If not, if you think it's risky, no problem.
We can. Let's see if I can get
Okay.
any
You can
bigger.
try. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh nice. Okay.
Is that
Cool.
better?
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Perfect.
All right. Yeah.
Nice.
So the biggest thing for me is in matches we're making approximately 5,000 decisions on average whenever we play a match. So for us, it's how do we create better decision makers on in a match. And in a match, 54% of points is the maximum amount that any player on the tour is winning to win a match. So it's tennis is dealt with small margins all the time. And if we can think about small margins all the time and think that if Andy Murray was world number one in 2016 and won 90% of his matches, but only won 55% of those points, it's our ability to recover from losses of points and our thinking that is going to create the ability for us to back the whole next point, because we can lose points. We things we have bad points, but it's our ability to think causes our ability to act. So it's interesting, Merban, because I went through the whole presentation. I got to the end and I realized you weren't there.
Oh no, you did? Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh. Holy crap.
But that's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Sorry.
So when we go through it, 70% of points finish in error. So I was taught that a mentor of mine who spoke, we speak often. We talked about the fact that the court tells us what we can and can't do, the size of the court, the dimensions of the court, and we spoke about the fact that the best players are the best mathematicians. They have the ability to understand angles, spaces, time. They can calculate in any situation they're in, because the court itself doesn't change. It actually doesn't change. No matter what surface you're on, the dimensions stay the same, unless we play pickleball. It's definitely the same size, right? So if we think of the first thing that we need to do is beat the court before we beat the opponent. So we have a court in front of us, and it's our ability to make the right decision to minimize error that is going to be all the difference. So I looked at creating this. So we all know this. The court is longer cross court than down the line. But a lot of the time we don't realize it's 1.2 meters longer if I go cross court to down the line. It's also 91 centimeters in the middle of the court in terms of the net height compared to 107 on the sidelines. We have so much more space playing cross court than we do down the line. It's our ability as players to play to the biggest spaces on the court to reduce the amount of error, knowing that 70% of points finish in error. So our thinking is so critical to us executing what we want to execute. Understanding that from the center of the court, like this red player here, we have minimal space in terms of width compared to if we are the yellow player here and we have space on the outside, we can play more angle and use more width in the game. Now, doing these and understanding these concepts around the court dimension shows us that we as players only have to minimize our error to give our opponent a chance to lose. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time in tennis, the opponent will lose before you have to win. 70% finish in error. The average rally length is 3.6. And our job is to make the opponent play one more ball. Now, just understanding court dimensions helps us to understand that winning and losing comes down to your decision-making, not necessarily your execution. I feel like I'm repeating myself, Merban, because I've been going through this for the last 20 minutes.
Sorry.
So it's not your fault, but so when we think about the next phase, so I'm thinking here around tactical frameworks. So in tennis, we're always in situations or in phases. Now, as a player, knowing what situation you are in or knowing what phase you are in helps you to make a decision based upon the situation and based upon the phase. So you're either in one of these 5 game scenarios, serving, returning, both back, or you're approaching or you're passing. We're always in one phase. We're either in defense, neutral, or offense. Now, knowing and understanding your situation will help you to make the decision that you need to make. Now, I would go through all the slides, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk through these 3 areas here, because this here, where it's defense, neutral, and offense, is so important to note. We do a couple of drills where we are in our academy based around the 1, 2, 3. 3 being defense, 2 being neutral, 1 being offense. Now, what we determine is we teach our athletes to understand the heights and shapes and margins of a ball depending on the situation. They play points out, calling out 1, 2, and 3. 1 being offense, 2 being neutral, 3 being defense. Because if we can understand the situation that we are in, we understand the shot we can play from that situation. So if we think of defensively, if I want to minimize my error, I have to understand I've got no time and space. I've got no choice. I'm usually on a second serve or push behind the baseline, or they're hitting a first serve. I'm running to a drop shot. So my choice and decision needs to be, if I can make the opponent play one more ball, I'm 1 ball closer to winning the point than they are. And that's the decision we make, is not trying to win the point from there, is how can I make my opponent play another shot? When I'm in neutral, my decisions are, how can I get myself into an offensive situation? How can I put my opponent into defense? How can I shift the game in my favor? And when I'm in offense, it's either I'm closing out the point or I'm trying to put my opponent into a defensive situation. Now, the decisions we make in these situations become so critical to the outcome of the point. And if we know that we're going to lose points, we have to accept execution errors. But what I don't accept is decision-making errors based on situation. Because the decision is the most important part, excuse me, of getting something right. If we make the wrong decision, there's no chance of executing correctly. If we make the right decision, we give ourselves a chance to execute. So, you still with me, Merban? You got me there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I just didn't want to make sure we're not going again.
Yeah.
So it's so critical that when we go onto a tennis court, we make decisions. We have to make decisions, but we have to train decisions. A lot of people train execution. My job as a coach is to help a player make better decisions to ensure that when they go on court, they don't need me to help them understand why something happened. We know that we're going to make executional errors. That's a given in our sport because we're trying to push for more at times. But what we can't accept is the decision side of it. So knowing what situation you are in helps you to make a great decision, giving yourself the best chance of making your ball. The number one thought is, if I make my ball, they still have to make theirs. And even if sometimes you pop the ball in the middle of the court, you still have a chance to win the point. If you hit the ball in the bottom of the net, you don't have a chance. The best players know this, and that's why 70% of points finish in error. They will force you into error more than hit winners. Right? That's the factual information around the top part of the game. So if the best players are making errors, can you imagine what we as amateurs are doing on the court more than they are? It's the ability for us to put our opponent into stressful situations and not to try and beat them off the court, but give them a chance to lose. So apologies for not being able to go through that whole thing, but I think the most critical element is understanding that our thinking decides everything that happens on a court, and how we keep ourselves in the conscious part of the brain, the present part of the brain, and understand there's a lot of thinking time. It's our thoughts that will create our actions, and our actions that will create the outcomes.
Yeah, that's really good. Good stuff, Mark. Yeah, we've got a couple questions here. So Brian, I tried answering this earlier, but how do you turn your negative mindset around in the middle of a set/point? Sometimes I don't realize how negative I'm being until the end of a point or while we're switching sides.
I think there's a lot of people think that we can turn this. And I like there's a word in there, switch. People think that there is a switch in what we do. We have to train routines. We have to train the ability to be present thinking. So in everything that I do with any of my players, it's about learning how to do this on a point by point basis. So I use a towel. I'll give you an example. So I've got a little piece of paper here, and I'll use that as my little bit of prop. The towel's at the back of the court, and the player loses the point or the player wins the point. Irrelevant. They go to the towel, they wipe away the previous point. Wipe it away. It's done. It's over. Whether I win it, whether I lose it, it's irrelevant. And what we try and train by doing that is that every point is a new point, regardless of whether I win or lose it. And if I can detach emotion, I start to think with rational thinking. So it's the ability for us to detach the emotion on every point and not wait till it builds up, and then I get myself caught up in a really poor mindset. Hope that helps.
That makes sense. Are there any off-court exercises that you encourage your students to do related to like helping with this?
I do a lot of gratitude work with a lot of my players. So the first thing I do is all of my good athletes, I get them to do a diary every night of the things that they did well during the day, the things that they want to improve tomorrow, what are they looking forward to tomorrow, and one person they're grateful for the day. So I try and create this gratitude around understanding that every situation is a teaching moment, and it's not going to affect anything. So when they learn to train the brain to think about the positives on the court, when they lose a point, they don't think of it as a negative. They go, okay, what do I get out of that? I might have missed my last shot, but I put them in a defense because I put a high, heavy ball to their backhand. They didn't like it. I got a short ball, but I missed. I hope that helps.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Let's see here. So Rockchild, appreciate you've been on a lot of streams. Is it possible to get so used to losing matches that you can't figure out how to win? It's a tough mental space.
Losing is a habit, and it can become a habit. Same as winning. Excuse me.
No worries.
Excuse me. So it's one of the things I think we need to get better at as humans is taking the ego away. So when we are losing, we can step back and say, okay, I need to go play a few lower matches against some lower
Mm,
players,
yeah.
because the challenge is, like, if you get into a rut, it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
I had a player on the pro tour who was top 30 in the world, and he dropped out to like 150, 160.
Mm,
He did not want to go and play challenges again.
mm.
And I said to him, but you need matches. You need to play 3, 4, 5 matches.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we went back and played some challenges, and it was the best thing for him. He'd play 4 or 5 matches every week for 3 or 4 weeks, instead of one match and losing and then moving to the next week. So it's so critical that you find out where you need to pull back and where you can keep going forward, because sometimes there's not always a forward movement. It's a back to go forward.
Mark, I feel like an absolute genius because I when you were out, I answered this question as I tried to answer it, and then one of my suggestions was to play like a lower level tournament or something like that to get confidence. So
There you
I'm
go.
glad that we're same page. It must be all these interviews we've been doing. It's osmosis going to my brain. um, but Mark, I also want people to know about what you're doing as well. So like, I mean, obviously you doing great things with tennis, the tennis menu, and just let us know like where what you're up to, where people can check out your stuff.
Yeah, the tennis menu is obviously where I do most of my stuff, and on YouTube, we're really building a big YouTube parts of information that people can look every day and see something coming up. And I think it's about educating, up and coming coaches or players, or I want to leave a legacy in the game, and that's always been my biggest thing is leave a strong legacy of supporting others.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do that, and then I work in Australian football as my part-time job as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
I love to do that because I'm dealing with 45, 46 players on a daily basis. And, how do we work in teams as opposed to individual? And so it's always about, for me, just getting better every day. And I've begun writing a book, which is pretty cool. So that should hopefully be out at some point in the next couple of months. And
Nice.
just around things that I've learned in the game over 25 years that I think a lot of people would hopefully get something from. So, yeah, it's the tennis menus where you'll see me mostly, but yeah, I'm trying to be as everywhere as I possibly can.
Awesome. We definitely, if you want to come on the podcast to help with the launch of the book, just let me know.
That'd
That's
be cool.
really exciting. Yeah, you must be super busy, so I appreciate you coming on. In terms of back to the subject matter, and I won't keep you too long. Is what mindset or mantra would you like players to have, like in relation to all the concepts you talk about? Like maybe what's something that they should think about as they're either training or going to the court to help with this.
I think that the biggest thing when you get on court is if you can train in situations, train under as much pressure as you can, put yourself into the mindset of being in a match, work on the routines, structures, and habits you need to get through on match day, to not worry about outcomes in practice because they're not transferable to tournaments.
Yeah.
So when you're training, like we have this issue with our kids that we have is they'll play a practice set and they'll be so upset that they lost in a
Mm,
practice set. Like, well, why aren't you working on the things that you need to get right for the match rather than worrying about the outcome? This is your opportunity to work on what you're going to do on tournament day. So putting yourself into the match environment as much as possible will help you to get into the match and feel comfortable, right? You want to feel uncomfortable in practice so you feel comfortable come match day. And the
right.
more you can put yourself into those situations, the brain starts to, I guess, get into a mindset of this is what needs to happen on match day. And we're training the subconscious brain to deal with situations, not to feel threatened by them. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's kind of like this we have to be in that mind frame all the time to be able to transfer the skill of thinking into matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, it's yeah, because I think now I'm forgetting who it was, but there was a pro that he like I don't know if it was Federer, who was it, but like they did lose a lot of practice sets, but
Yeah,
come match day, they're way better than their practice partner is.
yeah. I
So yeah.
had a great example of a pro player who I was working with before the Australian Open, and he came and practiced with her. He was 26, 27. He was about 400, 500 in the world at the time,
Mm.
playing qualifying. So we were getting ready for that. And he played a practice set against a 16-year-old who I had in my academy. And I spoke to this pro player about it. I said, okay, I want you to serve and volley everything because we're going to work on our transition stuff. He loses a set 6-4 against a 16-year-old kid. All the kids around were like, oh my God, you beat a pro player. Well done. Congratulations. That's the best. So the pro player goes on to lose last round of qualifying in the Australian Open. He lost to Kyle Edmund at the time,
Oh,
7-5 in the third set.
tough.
And this guy had never won a round of a Grand Slam before. So he got all the way through qualifying, which is awesome. And that
Yeah.
16-year-old kid quit tennis at the end of the year.
Oh gosh. Wow.
So, and I use this story to all players and say, the practice set means nothing for the
Mhm.
future of what you become, but it does give you the ability to create the tools that you need for match day. You can't take an outcome in practice and transfer it to a match, but
Mhm.
you can take the habits and tools that you've learned and transfer those. And if players can understand that, they become so much better on the match court because their practice sessions are so much more efficient and effective.
Mhm. Makes a lot of sense. So, like, I guess there another example. I'm just seeing your advice here, but like, let's say I'm working. My main focus on the practice is my second serve. So, say I play a practice set and my second serve, it's really improving this time, and I'm hitting it very well. But then maybe some other parts of my game that are normally good, like they're a little bit off, and I lose a practice set. But then it's really like mission accomplished because I'm working on exactly what I need to work on and trying to improve that part, and the others will come piece together later. Is that
Yeah,
kind of the
correct.
idea?
And
Got
yeah,
it.
and like if your ground strokes are not working on that day, again, you can't pick up and take the outcome and put it into the match. So just
Yeah.
because it didn't work today, it's not that it won't work tomorrow. It's just that it didn't work today.
Yeah.
And there's a great story on YouTube. And if you're like listening to this, if there's one thing you get out of today, is go and type in the Chinese farmer. And the Chinese
Mm.
farmer is a story that there's no such thing as good, no such thing as bad, because we don't know that if I have a good practice session, will that translate to a good match? If I
Mm.
have a bad practice session, is that going to translate to a bad match? Because we don't know the consequence of the session. So,
Mm.
a player I had the other day on court, he lost 2 first rounds in his tournaments in the first 2 weeks of our holiday period here, where we have big tournaments on. And he came to me and he was so upset. He said, I'm crap. I can't play. I don't know why I'm bothering anymore. And he knows the Chinese farmer story. And I said,
Mhm.
the Chinese farmer. And he said, yeah, but that's not right. I said, the Chinese farmer. Just remember it. Anyway, he was playing incredibly well, but he didn't realize it. He goes into the next tournament 3 days later and he loses in the final and wins the doubles final. And he
Ooh,
texted me,
nice.
he sent me a text message. He said, the Chinese farmer. I said, yeah, like there's no such thing as good or bad because we don't know the consequence. Those 2 matches have made you play really well for this next match. So what you've taken in those lessons have been transferable. The result didn't come with you in terms of the losses, but what did come with you is the learnings, and that came with you into the match, and you were able to then sustain 4 matches, 5 matches in a row to get to a final. So I think it's really understanding that the practice session won't relate to what's happening in the match in terms of outcomes. That's the biggest lesson I want people to take away.
Awesome. Yeah. As soon as I Googled it and I started reading, I remembered that story. That's a
It's a
really
cool
good one
story.
to, yeah, great perspective as well. You never know yeah, I don't spoil it, but, yeah, awesome. um, Good stuff, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate. I don't know if the audience can tell, but Mark is powering through today. Obviously, this isn't Mark's normal beautiful voice here. So I don't want to like strain it like so much and keep him for an hour and a half. So I really do appreciate you coming to this session, to the summit, Mark. So definitely looking forward to your book coming out in a couple months. So I highly encourage everybody to click the button below this video and go to the tennismenu.com and check that out. And yeah, so Mark, any
Awesome.
last thoughts before we adjourn?
No, I always loved what you do, Merban. The way that you present this stuff to to tennis people is incredible, and I'll always keep doing it as long as you're doing it, because I think it's so important that as a community we stick together and we keep building and we make tennis, stay for life, because there is obviously a lot of competitors, and we're not our own competitors. The other sports are what we're competing against, and keep doing what you're doing, Merban. Thanks for everyone for joining. I really appreciate everything. Sorry we cut out halfway through that, but and apologize for my voice today. It's been quite croaky the last few days, but I wasn't going to miss the session, and hopefully you got something out of it.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. Now you're a warrior. Thanks for powering through, and appreciate it. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.